Skip it up and that up. So a patent may have just revealed some of the capabilities of the PlayStation 5's DualShock 5 controller. Let's get into it. Today's video is brought to you by the Sabrent Rocket Nano hard drive. This is a hard drive. It's the size of a thumb drive, and it stores up to 2 terabytes of storage depending on the model you purchase, and it has up to 1,000 megabytes per second speeds. It also comes in this awesome case and includes a USB-A to USB-C cable and a Thunderbolt 3 cable to really take advantage of how fast this drive truly is. Affiliate link below in the description. Alright, so a patent has just been filed by Sony Japan Studio, and it gives us a taste of what the DualShock 5 will be capable of, or gimmicks that the controller will have that Sony or third-party developers will probably virtually never use, because we'll talk about the history of DualShock controllers and features that were never used. But anyway, so this is coming from comicbook.com. I'll link to the article below in the description. This is what it says. The patent in question, filed recently and by Sony Japan Studio, specifically makes note of new climbing mechanics. More or less, it notes that each trigger can represent a character's hand. With this, players can tilt the gamepad towards whatever climbing point they want to grab and use the triggers to independently grab with the character's left or right hand. Kind of sounds like what they do with VR controllers, like with the Oculus controllers, but slightly more awkward. But anyway, meanwhile, if you pull too lightly, your character's grip will be lighter, and as a result, they could lose grip and fall. However, if you pull too hard, that's what she said, you may damage or break what you're trying to grab at. And of course, to let players know whether they are grabbing too light or too hard, the controller can vibrate or the game can give visual cues. Okay. All right, whatever. I'll leave my hot take for the end. Meanwhile, the other new mechanic the patent mentions is a cutting mechanic. So say players are holding a chainsaw. The controller's vibration and audio will reflect the saw is not cutting anything. However, once cutting objects, you'll feel not only the material of what you're cutting via the haptic feedback, but through the triggers. For example, if you're cutting through something thick and harder, you'll get more resistance in the triggers. Meanwhile, if you're cutting through butter, you won't feel a thing. So, okay, they're trying to make the controller give you a more visceral experience with the DualShock 5, if this patent is actually features that are actually implemented in the DualShock 5. We have to remember patents are filed all the time, and it doesn't always mean things that are patents that are filed by Nintendo, Sony, or Microsoft actually come to fruition as a consumer product. But a lot of times, if you think back to the past, and I think it really starts with the DualShock 2 for the PlayStation 2, there were features that were implemented in controllers by Sony, their DualShocks, that were either lightly used, barely used, or never used. I know on the PlayStation 2 DualShock, the face buttons actually were pressure sensitive. So if you pressed them harder, it would actually, like say you were trying to drive a car and you want to put your foot down harder under the gas. If you press the face buttons harder on the PlayStation 2 DualShock, it was supposed to give you a more accurate experience. As far as I know, at least games that I played, the majority of games never really used it. Then when you went on to the 6-axis controller, because if you remember, there was some kind of lawsuit that Sony had with the vibration inside of the controller, so they couldn't have vibration initially, and they had the 6-axis controller, where it was all about, it was basically Sony saying, just in case this Wii thing that Nintendo was coming out with at the time, which was a wild success, is successful, we want to have our own motion controls inside of our PlayStation 3 controller, and it didn't have the haptic feedback or the vibration features initially. Can't say haptic feedback because technically the motors in the controllers aren't haptic feedback. They just went with the motion controls, and I remember they showed that game Lair when they showed off the motion controls of the 6-axis, and again, it was something that was barely used and no one really gave a crap about it. So then we went on to the DualShock 4, which had the touchpad on the DualShock 4 controller. No one ever really used that. The light in the front, I know, of the DualShock 4 sometimes is used with PlayStation VR games, but anyone really using that touchpad? Anybody? No, not really. The touchpad was worthless on there, and the light just ended up costing more battery and making the battery life of the DualShock 4 shorter, which annoyed most people. I could care less that the DualShock 5 is probably going to get rid of the light. Here we are now at the DualShock 5 though, and maybe these features will be used. But let's pretend I'm holding a DualShock 5 right now. Here's my DualShock 5. Are you really going to sit there and pretend, like here I'm holding the DualShock 5 R1 trigger. Am I really going to sit there and go, zzz, I'm cutting through wood right now? Zzz. No, you're not. You're not. Like, it's going to be used in a couple games, probably at launch, and then third-party developers aren't going to care about it, and everyone's just going to move on with their day. Or who knows, maybe this will finally be the time Sony's trying to innovate and the features will be used. But they've tried this in the past before, like I said, with the DualShock 2, DualShock 3, or 6-axis controller, DualShock 4, and here we are with the DualShock 5, and they're trying something else. But maybe something finally will stick. Hey, at least they're trying, and they're trying to be innovative. But I kind of just don't see me going like this, like, oh, I just need to cut through this big, thick piece of wood. So nice, big, and thick. Ah. That's what she said again. This is Rich of Review Tech USA signing out. Have a good one. I'm going to go saw through something else big and thick now, too. Ha! I'm getting real weird. Real weird. Hey, if you enjoy my content, consider becoming a Review Tech USA member. I'll have a link below in the description. I live stream now on this channel all the time, and it gives you access to cool emoticons to use as well while I live stream. Again, link below in the description. Thank you for your continued support.